All right, let's talk about one of the most incredible battles in history, a battle where the winner was decided long before anyone even picked up a weapon. We're diving into the story of how a private corporation, a company, managed to conquer an entire kingdom. This is the Battle of Plassey. So picture this. It's June 23rd, 1757, in Bengal, India. On one side, you've got the army of the British East India Company, and I mean a company, not a country, with about 3,000 soldiers. On the other side, the Nawab of Bengal's force, a massive army of around 50,000. I mean, you look at those numbers, this shouldn't have even been a fight. It should have been an absolute slaughter. So, the big question is, how on earth did this tiny force pull off a win against an enemy more than 15 times its size? Well, the answer has nothing to do with brilliant battlefield strategy or some kind of superweapon. Nope. This story is all about ambition, a secret conspiracy, and just plain old-fashioned betrayal. Okay, so to really get how this conspiracy came to be, we've got to back up a little. We need to look at the rising tensions that set the whole thing in motion. It was basically a collision course between a new, wary local ruler and a foreign company that was getting way too big for its boots. So here's what went down. The new Nawab of Bengal, a guy named Siraj-ud-Daulah, comes to power, and let's just say he's really suspicious of the British East India Company. He sees them building up their military forts around Calcutta and says, hey, knock it off. But the British, they just straight up refused. So the Nawab does what any ruler would do. He attacks and captures Calcutta. This, of course, doesn't sit well with the company. They send in a force led by Colonel Robert Clive to take the city back. And just like that, a tense situation explodes into all-out war. This is where things get really interesting. Robert Clive knows he can't win a straight-up fight. He's massively outnumbered. So he decides the real battle won't be fought with guns and cannons. It's going to be won in the shadows, with secrets and betrayal. You see, Clive and his people started digging around, and they found a massive crack in the Nawab's armor. Turns out, Siraj-ud-Daulah was not a popular guy at all. His own powerful courtiers, even his top generals, couldn't stand him. They were scared of him, and they were looking for a way to get rid of him. For Clive, this was like hitting the jackpot. He realized he could use the Nawab's own people against him. And who were these conspirators? Well, the main player was a man named Mir Jafar. And get this, he was the Nawab's commander-in-chief, the top guy. He wasn't alone, though. You had other high-ranking commanders, and maybe most importantly, the Jagat Sets, who were basically the richest and most powerful bankers in all of Bengal. So this wasn't just about military power, this was about money, big money. So Clive makes a secret deal with Mir Jafar. It was pretty straightforward, really. Mir Jafar promises that on the day of the battle, he and the huge chunk of the army he controls will, well, they'll just do nothing. They won't fight. And in exchange for this epic betrayal, the British will get rid of the old Nawab and put Mir Jafar on the throne as their new puppet ruler. Oh, and the company? They'd get paid a lot. And Clive, he was a sneaky operator. To make sure this whole thing didn't fall apart, he actually created a fake treaty on red paper just to trick one of the other conspirators he didn't trust. He had the real one on white paper for everyone else. Later on, when he had to explain this to the British Parliament, he basically said, yeah, I tricked him, but he was a villain, so it was totally justified. Can you believe the nerve? All right, let's get to the day of the battle itself. June 23rd, 1757. The plan is in motion. The secret deal is struck. But now everything hangs in the balance. Is this conspiracy actually going to work when the cannons start firing? Let's see how it all unfolds. So, at 8 a.m., the battle kicks off. The Nawab's army unleashes this massive cannon barrage. But Clive's forces? They're smart. They've dug in, taking cover in a mango grove. And for hours, that's pretty much it. Just a whole lot of cannon fire, with the Nawab's huge army not really making a dent in the tiny British force. And then, something completely unexpected happens. Around noon, the skies just open up. A massive rainstorm hits. And this single stroke of luck, this downpour, is about to change absolutely everything. This is where it all goes wrong for the Nawab, just one disaster after another. First, the rain. His army's gunpowder gets soaked and becomes useless. But the British? They'd covered theirs with tarps. Smart. Then, in the fighting, the Nawab's single most loyal general is killed.
The Nawab starts to panic. He rides over to the traitor, Mir Jafar, and begs for advice. And Mir Jafar tells him, "You should retreat." As soon as the loyal parts of the army start pulling back, Mir Jafar's giant division just stands there. They don't move, they don't fight, they don't do anything. The betrayal is out in the open. Clive sees his chance, orders the advance, and by 5 p.m., it's all over. The conspiracy didn't just work, it worked perfectly.
So the actual fighting was over in just a few hours, but the fallout from this one battle, it would completely change the course of Indian history for the next 200 years. The East India Company didn't just win a battle, they won a subcontinent. And what was the first thing to happen? Money. Lots and lots of money. Mir Jafar gets put on the throne, just like they promised. And his first order of business is to pay the company for, helping him commit treason. The price tag? A jaw-dropping 22 million rupees. We're talking about a sum that would be worth hundreds of millions, maybe even billions today. It was a king's ransom, and it went straight into the company's pockets.
You really can't overstate how much this one event transformed the East India Company. I mean, think about it. Before Plassey, they were basically just traders with a few forts. After Plassey, they were the real power in Bengal, the richest part of India. They went from making profits on trade to controlling vast amounts of land and tax revenue. They had a puppet ruler who did whatever they said, and they'd knocked their biggest competitor, the French, right out of the picture.
So politically, this was an earthquake. With their puppet Nawab in place, the company could do whatever it wanted. The French threat in Bengal was gone for good. This victory at Plassey is really considered the moment company rule in India began. It laid the groundwork for the next 100 years of British expansion across the entire subcontinent. It wasn't just a battle, it was the beginning of the British Empire in India. When you boil it all down, the Battle of Plassey is so much more than just a historical event from the 1700s. It's a really powerful and kind of scary example of what can happen when a corporation's ambition is left completely unchecked. And it leaves us with this huge, lingering question, one that's still incredibly relevant today. What happens when a private company gets more powerful than a government?